Welcome back to the deep dive. Today we are trying something a little different. I think you could even call it unprecedented for us. We're doing a full-scale forensic analysis of, well, what might be the most concise set of source material we have ever received. So our listener handed us this topic. The title is Architecting the New Year,
Right.
and the subtitle is How to Plan Your New Year. And that's it. That's the entire source.
A fascinating challenge, really. I mean, usually we're sifting through dozens of articles, research papers, the whole nine yards.
Yeah, pages and pages.
Exactly. But here, everything, all the substance is concentrated right in the promise of the language.
So our mission is to find the core insights from this ultra minimal material. We want to deliver that understanding, that hidden knowledge, quickly and thoroughly. Your shortcut to being well informed.
We're basically decoding the strategic intent that's just, embedded in the vocabulary itself. It forces us to look at the implications of using such specific, deliberate words for something as common as setting New Year's goals.
It's like the title is a roadmap, but it's encoded in a single sentence. We're trying to figure out what the missing material must have promised. Okay, let's unpack this. The single most concise source list we've ever received. I think we should start with that subtitle. How to Plan Your New Year.
Mm.
The two words that really jump out at me immediately are how to.
Right.
That flaming, that instructional tone, it suggests that the author is assuming a methodology is needed. A series of actionable, repeatable steps.
It really demands a shift in mindset from the get-go. It takes us away from, passive wish fulfillment.
Right, just hoping for the best.
And drops us right into active implementation. And let's just stay on the word plan for a second.
Okay.
What does planning actually mean? I mean, really mean? It's the total antithesis of just crossing your fingers and hoping things work out. Planning involves foresight, strategy,
deliberate design,
deliberate resource allocation, maybe. Absolutely. The necessity of strategic intent is the immediate, non negotiable takeaway. We have to differentiate between a real plan and, say, a simple wish list.
And a wish list is what? Just a collection of hopes. I wish I were healthier. I wish I had more money, that kind of thing.
Precisely. A plan, on the other hand, establishes dependencies. It understands that one thing has to happen before another thing can.
Can you give us an example of that? Like, how does that strategic intent look in practice?
Okay, sure. So if you're approaching your year with that intent, you recognize that goal A, let's say it's launching a side business, well, that just can't succeed without laying the groundwork first.
The foundation?
The foundation. A plan requires a foundation built on clear prerequisites. You don't just write down launch business. You write step one, secure $5,000 in capital by cutting back on X, Y, and Z. That's financial goal one,
right?
Which then frees up 10 hours a week. That's time goal two, which then enables the final goal. You see, that's planning. It's seeing the whole chain of events.
That makes the distinction so much clearer. We're moving beyond just a schedule of events. It's a strategy, and a strategy that has to acknowledge what comes first.
Mm-hmm.
But, a strategy only really works if it fits the terrain it's applied to. And that brings us to the massive implication of that next word, your.
Yes.
Your new year. That personalization is a huge deal. It implies that whatever system the full source material would have provided, it just can't be a one size fits all template you just pull off a shelf.
Absolutely. The rigor of the plan has to be matched by its personalization. The key nugget here is that the blueprint you create, it has to be adaptable to your unique constraints.
And what kind of constraints are we talking about?
Well, we're talking about your life stage, for one.
Mm-hmm.
A plan for someone who's, early in their career.
Mm-hmm.
They're focused on growth, on networking. That's a completely different structure than a plan for a parent who's juggling family, where the main constraint is probably energy and time.
The load bearing elements are totally different.
Completely. The personalization forces you to do an honest inventory of your current resources,
Mm-hmm.
your money, your emotional reserves, and maybe most importantly, your time. If a plan doesn't account for the non negotiables of your life as it is right now,
It's not a plan.
it's not a plan, it's fiction.
So, okay. The source material is demanding a strategic, personalized plan that's already setting the bar incredibly high.
It is.
And that's the perfect segue into the main title, the phrase that really elevates this whole discussion: architecting the new year. Why that verb? Why architecting? Why not mapping out or structuring or even just organizing? I mean, sometimes I worry we use fancy language when a simpler word would do. Is this just jargon or does this term actually matter? Here's where it gets really interesting.
That's a critical question. Mm-hmm. And I think the answer is no. It's definitely not jargon. It's the difference between sketching a floor plan on a napkin and hiring a structural engineer.
Yeah.
To really synthesize the meaning of architecting, we have to see that it implies deliberate, large scale structural design. The word forces us to consider complexity, longevity, and foundational integrity.
So let's break that down. You said there are two major components implied by that metaphor.
Let's start with rigor. So, nugget one, an architect creates a detailed blueprint before any construction begins.
Before a single shovel hits the dirt.
Exactly. If you rush past that blueprint phase, the foundation of your goals is going to be shaky. Those walls will never stand straight. This rigor, it means your plan needs to identify the absolute structural necessities.
So we need to think like engineers of our own lives. If we are structural engineers, then what are the load-bearing walls? What are the things that if you took them away, the entire structure of your year just collapses?
Excellent point. The load-bearing walls are those non-negotiables. They're the core habits, maybe the key relationships that support everything else.
Like what, for example?
Well, for one person, a load-bearing wall might be consistent sleep hygiene, because without it, their focus at work goes, their health goes, and their professional goals become totally unsustainable.
Okay, I can see that.
For another person, it might be a weekly budget review, because without that feeling of financial security, their ability to, pursue creative projects or take risks just crumbles. Architecture forces you to identify and then protect these critical supports.
I really appreciate that focus on durability. We're not just building something for a week or a month. We're building something that's meant to stand for 12 months, maybe even longer.
And we could push this metaphor even further. We can introduce another critical concept that I think most planning misses.
What's that?
Zoning. Architecture is heavily governed by zoning laws, right?
Sure.
The separation of different functional areas to prevent conflict.
Like not putting a factory next to a school.
Exactly. When you architect your year, you have to zone your life.
So, define boundaries between your work goals and your health goals, for instance.
Precisely. For example, if your career ambition is super high intensity, you need to deliberately zone time for recovery for physical activity. If you don't, the career goal will eventually just eat the health goal, and that leads to structural failure. You have to proactively manage those conflicts before they even arise.
That immediately makes me think of that feeling of being overwhelmed that people get when they set too many goals.
Mm-hmm.
They haven't zoned them properly, they've just let everything bleed into everything else.
They're all competing for the same resources, the same time, the same energy.
Which leads perfectly into nugget number 2.
Yeah.
The one I find, I think this is the most profound part. Architecture involves both function and aesthetics.
Yes.
It's not enough for a building to just stand up and serve a purpose. It also has to be, pleasant, inspiring to live in.
And this is where we move from structural planning into genuine life design.
Mm-hmm.
Is your New Year plan meant to be just purely functional? Achieving specific measurable goals like lose 15 pounds or get a promotion? Or is it also meant to be aesthetically fulfilling?
What does that mean, though? Aesthetically fulfilling.
Designing a life that feels well organized, harmonious, meaningful, a life you actually enjoy living in.
Okay, let's try to ground that for the listener. So, if my functional goal is purely numbers driven, let's say save $10,000 this year, what's the aesthetic counterpart that an architect would focus on?
Great question. The functional goal is the quantifiable output, the $10,000. The aesthetic counterpart is the feeling, the qualitative experience you are trying to design.
The feeling.
Yes, saving 10,000 is functional, but the aesthetic goal is to feel secure, disciplined, maybe even abundant in your financial decisions all year. If you hit that $10,000 mark, but you felt panicked and deprived every single day to get there,
You failed the design test.
you failed the design test. The architecture was functionally sound, but aesthetically painful. What's fascinating here is the implied requirement to balance the two. An architect has to manage constraints, budget, materials, time, and the final product is judged on both its utility and its beauty.
So, when you architect your year, you have to deal with your own constrained resources, your time, your energy, your money.
Right. And you have to do that while making sure the finished product is a life you genuinely enjoy inhabiting.
That is incredibly insightful. The language itself, just the word architecting, it provides a much higher intellectual framework than just setting goals. And this rigor, this sophistication, it leads us to our final section, the critical analysis of what's missing.
Mm-hmm.
Because while the title is inspiring and demanding, the actual deep dive means we have to fill in the substance ourselves.
It does. The title suggests this immense structure, but without the actual steps to follow, it kind of acts as a challenge. And this raises an important question.
Okay.
What fundamental assumptions are we making about what's required based purely on the expectations set by this one word, architecting?
So, what are we assuming the missing pages would have told us to do?
Well, we assume an architect doesn't just plan for the ideal climate, right? They plan for the worst case scenario.
They plan for the hurricane, not just the sunshine.
Exactly. A good architect plans for a Category 5 hurricane. For you, the listener, this means asking, If my main load bearing wall fails, I get sick, I lose my job, I just run out of motivation. What is my immediate pre planned structural revision?
That's a huge point. We often treat goals as these fragile things that just snap the second life hits them.
Right.
But true structural integrity, it requires building in redundancy, building in flexibility. So that's a practical takeaway right there.
Yeah.
Your plan has to include a failure mechanism that doesn't cause a total collapse.
Exactly. And the language also implies detailed measurement. We have to assume we need a precise budget of time, of effort, of money, just like an architect needs to calculate material costs and load bearing.
Mm-hmm.
The sophistication of the word itself elevates the expectation. It's almost a warning. Superficial planning isn't going to support a structure this ambitious.
So, to synthesize all of this, just based on this linguistic analysis, the source material, even though it's minimal, it promises a framework that is rigorous, strategic, personalized, and structurally sound.
It demands deep forethought. It demands deliberate design, not just of your outcomes, but of your daily experience.
And a clear acknowledgement of the complexity
Yes.
of,
Yeah.
well, of building a good life.
And if we connect this to the bigger picture, the most important meta lesson from this whole exercise is that effective knowledge gathering, just like effective planning, it requires clear, substantive input. We've been handed a magnificent, high level vision, the idea of a well designed life.
Right.
But the actual work of filling in that blueprint, of gathering the resources, of making the hard trade offs, that remains entirely with you. The title is The Beautiful Architectural Vision. The execution is all your responsibility.
Precisely. So, what does this all mean? It means you now have a high level goal to architect your year. And you also have a clear understanding of the complexity that goal implies. The need for foresight, for zoning, for protecting those load bearing elements, and for balancing function and aesthetics.
You know, the quality of the planning has to match the ambition of the name.
You really do. Thank you for providing us with this intriguing source challenge. It proves that sometimes the verbs we choose for our own intentions carry all the weight. And as you think about applying the rigor of architecture to your own upcoming year, we'll leave you with this final provocative thought to mull over. If architecting truly means balancing structure and aesthetics, what is the single most important aesthetic element? The feeling or quality that you will prioritize above all else when designing your new year? Will it be calm, excitement, connection, or maybe efficiency? The blueprint starts there.